Hello everyone, happy Saturday. I love you. I'm sending you a very big virtual hug wherever you are on the earth plane in this now moment. I wanted to do a video today on the narratives that are being thrown at us right now, preparing us for a future that may or may not happen. These narratives are losing more of our rights, mandated vaccines, internment camps, martial law, and anything and everything else that has to do with fear, control, manipulation, and greed. So before I begin, I want to quickly share a personal story. In 1989, I was 13, and I was told at that time by my guides that I would be assisting the entire human collective in the ascension process. And at that time, there was this sort of awareness around the ascension process that there was going to be cataclysmic events, natural disasters on the earth plane, and the humans were going to need help getting off the earth. And that ETs, craft, aliens would come down in their ships, and I would be helping people exit off of the earth plane. So in 1989, there was an awareness that there was going to be a massive shift in consciousness and that humanity was going to be going through some sort of physical shift and that I would be there to assist. Now we know in 2020 that it's a physical shift that we're currently going through in our bodies and on top of the earth plane, and we aren't going anywhere. The reason I share this message is because everything that we're experiencing right now is exactly the way it has always been designed to be. There is nothing out of the ordinary happening. There is nothing spontaneous happening, like, oh my God, how come this is happening? Oh my God, how come this is happening? All of this is the divine design of ascension, which is going from a lower state of consciousness to a higher state of consciousness, or a lower frequency to a higher frequency. This is just part of the movement through the evolution of consciousness. So beginning to remember and hold that can create a little more ease and grace as you watch everything crumble in the external. There's nothing surprising about what's happening, okay? So what we're noticing is that across the earth plane, in all these different countries, we are experiencing different narratives playing out. Some are similar and some are very different. Some countries are going through different narratives than other countries, okay? And we're not all going to experience the same narratives. We're even watching this with COVID. Some countries are having a much more difficult time than other countries, okay? So we want to remember that just because one country is going through something doesn't mean all the other countries on the earth plane are going to. There is a spectrum of how each country is going to be experiencing this collective shift in consciousness. So there are many narratives. Remember, a narrative is the stories that we're being given right now about what may come. It's a future. It's not necessarily in the now. There are many narratives right now that will never play out. Many that will never play out, we will never see. And there are some narratives that we will absolutely experience. But the majority of the narratives that we're being given right now about losing our rights, internment camps, martial law, mandated vaccines, all of these really fear-based consciousness, many of them we will not experience. So let me dive a little bit deeper into that. A narrative is based on a timeline, which is based on a frequency. So if the human collective is holding a frequency that is exactly the same frequency as, let's say, internment camps, that action, that experience is holding a frequency. If the majority of the human collective is holding that same frequency, that narrative has a high probability of playing out because the human collective is holding that same frequency and they're walking down the timeline that's holding internment camps. Okay? So a narrative is based on a timeline that's based on a frequency. These frequencies is what we're shifting. You and I are shifting these frequencies, these narratives. We're shifting them. And how are we shifting them? We are shifting them when we choose to be the opposite of how the narrative wants us to be. That's how we shift it. So an internment camp, mandated vaccines, martial law, anything that's losing our rights, right? Those are narratives that want us to feel what? Fear, anxiety, stress, worry, concern, right? All of the panic. This is how that narrative is wanting us to experience it and feel. And when you feel that, you are perpetuating that frequency and narrative, allowing that timeline to continue to play out. If you choose the opposite of that energy and frequency, what would it feel like? It would be love, freedom, safety, compassion, expansion, sovereignty. You are starting to hold and choose to hold consciousnesses, experiences, beingnesses that are the opposite of what that narrative is telling you to be. And the more we do this, the faster we shift that narrative and that timeline. Just because a narrative is coming out, just because people are telling you that this is going to happen in the future, has no bearing on whether it happens. None. That's how powerful we are. I'm going to say that again. Just because narratives are coming out and saying, oh my God, prepare for this. Oh my God, prepare for this. Oh my God, prepare for this. I'm telling you right now with 100% certainty that if all of us choose to be the opposite of what that narrative is telling us, we will shift that narrative. We will shift that timeline, and we will never experience what they're telling us to prepare for. That is how we shift an entire human collective. I'll say this again. A narrative is based on a timeline. A timeline is based on a frequency that we are shifting by not being that frequency. When we choose to be the opposite of how the narrative wants us to be, we shift the narrative. So recognize when a story comes out from somebody, when information is telling us that this is coming and this is coming and this is coming. Step one, that's a narrative. Step two, what's the energy or frequency of that narrative? How do you know? You feel it. Oh my God, I feel fear. I feel nervousness. I feel anger. I feel frustration. Great. Step three, you observe and choose to feel and be the opposite. You choose to feel and be the opposite over and over and over. And you remember that this is designed to unravel the way it is. This is designed to unravel this way. And we have to remember that we have got to choose to hold higher states of consciousness. You hold the higher timelines. You hold the higher timelines. Here's a timeline: internment camps, mandated vaccines. Even if you're in the now moment experiencing it, that's an even more powerful time to hold the higher states. If you're in that experience right now, it's actually happening. You're standing on the timeline where you are experiencing a mandated vaccine. How can you hold the higher timeline or the higher states of consciousness or the opposite of what that narrative and timeline is asking you to hold? That's how we shift. So here it is. Ready? I'm going to give you 6 steps to just hold as we go through this the next couple of months, because the narratives are going to get louder. They want us to buy into the narratives. They want us to feed the narratives. The more you feed that narrative, the more you give it fear and anxiety and stress and worry, the larger that narrative becomes and the more plausible it is for it to unravel. Step 1, stay present. If it's not in your now, don't play in it. Step 2, choose the higher timeline, i.e., be the opposite of what that timeline is asking you to be. Step 3, remember the bigger picture. This is how we ascend. Step 4, what if I was safe? Step 4, ask that question, what if I was actually safe? What if there is nothing to fear? Ask yourself that over and over and over again. Fear is a control mechanism, and it's a powerful one, and you are not here to be controlled by fear any longer. 5, we are all protected and surrounded in light as we move through this. 6, educate yourself. Critically think. Gain more information, and then choose. Choose, choose, choose. Choose to stay in the higher timelines. The higher timelines are, there are none of these narratives playing out. That we are in abundance and freedom and safety and love and compassion and empathy. That we are unified. That there is love to be experienced with all of humanity. That we come together. That there isn't any more fear-based narratives and greed and evil, control, manipulation. The higher timeline is anything other than what they are throwing at us as a fear narrative. Choose it. I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. I am sovereign, I am sovereign, I am sovereign. I am the light. I am safe, I am sovereign, I am the light. And choose. Okay? Because their narratives are going to get louder. And the narratives are here to control you with fear. And fear is an illusion. And fear is what we are dissolving. All right? So hopefully this helps. I'm telling you, as a 13-year-old, I knew this was going to happen. So what we are experiencing right now is divinely designed. And now it is our time to step up and to remember that we are beings of light in human form. We are not victims. And we have the ability to shift any narrative that is thrown at us by choosing the opposite of what that narrative wants us to feel. We can do this. We already did this. And we're doing it together, side by side, all over the earth plane, shifting the entire human collective. I love you. Thank you for being here.